Here we are in scene 3. This is Gowan leading the Mahewans. So, a bit different. Got mountains, mountain range, waterfall here, water coming across the range, and then these trails that will have characters, horses and people walking on foot, that will progressively, fall into the perspective, into this canyon. Start with a fountain pen, a bit bigger. Establish my boundary. I think it's important here to just be very loose with the line work, lifting up the pen in moments when you feel it. Because it's an organic landscape, with fine liners it can be very rigid. So that's about it for my initial. Maybe I'll show kind of some of these harder divots, these edges here, maybe across, in a darker, thicker line weight. Okay. As you can tell, that's it. Next, I come in with the second thickest line weight, which is a 2. I'm gonna go with. See, I have 2 different 2s. I got 2 here. It's an older one. And here I'm going to look at my reference, observe it, scan it. I'm going to scan all the second layer prominent features. Scanning from left to right. I see that there's darker values here, darker here. And I'm going to find where the darker values are. And then outline that in the 2 line weight. So that is a lighter feature, so that will be left alone, but I'm going to kind of display it separately, outlining it with the 2. So now I'm understanding my parameters here. We've got this piece. So I'm breaking up this landscape into its puzzle pieces, into its parts. All right, so I'll zoom in here as I go for it. Again, as I take my pen across the page, it's loose, it's light, it's friendly, I guess. Try not to let my hand be so holding the pen too tight. Gonna find some of the darker values here. And I let my mind and my hand work in sync together, where I'm observing how the landscape is loose, it's jagged, it's random in a way. So I want my hand to move that way as well. We're going to come in later and hatch in these regions, these areas that I've marked out. So in a way, I'm preparing the hatching areas. I know that the mountain starts to come into the earth, so I'm going to show the line work sort of come in and blending in with the earth. Next, we scan across. Let's look at the image again. We see there is less action happening here. More longer, cleaner moves. There's going to be this bold one, this long one. So I see this mountain range in segments of like 4 or 5 segments. I see it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. This area down here is like the vegetation that is starting to climb up the mountain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take this across. Okay. Now we can look at the foreground. This is our foreground, this is our middle ground, and this is our background. So we're going to be working from back to fore. So let's look at the composite reference. And I'm going to see it also in segments. This little area, how the water range splits these 2 pieces of land. right? So this is a whole region, and this entire area is a region. And then after that segmenting, I'll look at how those areas are broken up. So this area, let me zoom in better, bring in more light. There we go. So this area is going to be broken up into 1, 2 pieces. You have the bushes here. This area is also going to be broken up into 1, 2, 3, 4 areas. Right? Cool. Still have the 2 in hand. In the other composite markup that I did separately, we talked about showing different pathways. We have one here, and I think also one in the middle, one on the right. So I'm also going to signify that with its edge. Maybe some grasses. Gets smaller, it's more of a speckled. See, I've already kind of shown it here in pencil. And then I have another pathway on the other side. Okay. Next steps, I have going to narrow in. So I have biggest line weight, middle line weight, and thinnest line weight. I have a .005 archival ink, black, and a 005 brown. Is a, what color is this again? Like sepia. That's the right word. And then here's like a more of a. So this tinted 005 is more on the light brown orange color, and that'll match well with the backdrop. So going to start with the 0.005. And here, we're going to start doing some hatching. So from left to right. So right now I'm keeping a consistent sort of a 60-degree angle, and I'm going to go over these areas that we established by their boundaries and fill them in with some hatch work. Now the density of the line weight of the line work, like how far I space them apart, is going to depend on the reference that I'm looking at, and that'll be sort of freehand, and I'll let my eye and my hand work together in that motion. So here we notice it's denser, darker, and then it lightens up. So I'm gonna go scan across the page, see that it's darker here, so I go denser. Here it's wider, lighter, so I take a lighter pen to it. Then we get into these darker crevices. I'm going to go dense, very dense, a little bit harder pressure on the pen. Come in closer here, it's dense, also very darker. Now, and we come, I think this area here is not hatched, it's like, so I'll leave that open. We want to create this texture, or that's actually a waterfall, so I'm going to leave that loose here, but I want to create texture, so it's this line work of just moving back and forth. And if you notice, the way I like to hatch is the lines are coming from the same direction every line. I come down, lift up my pen, come back to its origin. Down, lift up, down, lift up, down, lift up, down, lift up, down, 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 down. So that way it's a clean, consistent line work. Come in closer, denser. Alright, come in again. I see that this area is a bit darker, so I again come in dark. And I can let my line work overlap in some of these boundaries that I've established for myself. I can let them cross over. So this read area is a bit lighter. I'll take a light hatching across it. So there's going to be little crevices along the mountainside as well. So then I'm going to just work around those areas by being aware of where I move across the page. See how I've sort of created almost looks like a feather. It's very feather-like. It's light. So So at this level, I'm not really copying exactly what's on the mountainside, but I'm letting it inform the pressure that I apply to my pen, how I move across the page, really. So it's have an understanding of what I'm looking at, but I don't try to really stick too much to what it is. I guess I'm trying to capture more of the essence of the landscape rather than copying exactly what it is. Zoomed in here, since we're working on the left side. Okay, we're almost done with the first part of the hatching. So this is one of the elements that's proud of the mountain face. So I'm going to leave that for right now. And I see that there is a shaded, very dark crevice. I come in and hatch it with dense line work. And then you can see the mountainside move along, and here I'll come a little bit lighter. There's a so that's that there. This also has a kind of a texture to this face, so I'm going to lightly hatch around it in different areas. And then as we come into more of a flat region, I go like that. So this is here. Okay. Now we come back to the left side. Kind of look at this. This is more of a flat face here. So I'm going to show it. So then this area from the reference is it's mostly darker, less jaggedness. It's kind of just, so I think I'm going to take just one line weight across it for now. So I'm still finding these crevices that I could shape these boulders, while I still come across with this one stroke. I let my pen find these edges and fill them in. So there we go. That's the first, this left side. I think there is a area back here that I'd like to hatch in with a different line. I'm going to go with the brown for that. So I'm going to go vertical here just to create a difference between these two areas. So vertical, close line work. Nice. Come to the right side, and this will be same direction of hatching. It'll be reflective of the reference also, obviously, but there isn't much jaggedness, there isn't as much texture happening as on the left side. I'm just going to observe the values and the different sort of, so we have 6 different areas, and in these 6 different areas they have a sense of there's different value, meaning color or depth, and what am I saying, like lightness and darkness. So on top of this, it turns left in this part, so maybe I don't know how I'm going to approach it, but sort of some texture. I can see that there's a darker value here, and in corners, it's helpful to come in with a darker hatch or a more dense hatch on the corner to show that difference on both sides. That helps us to shape the mountain. In the pencil reference that I'm looking at, I see that there's like this organic line work. So I'm going to work around that first. So since I have a top edge here, I'm going to start every line from the profile and I'm going to drag it down, pulling it down towards me. Same. I think that this plane here is pretty consistent. It's all has a pretty flat looking, there's not much texture. So I'm going to take one line weight across, one density. Here it is a bit darker, this face, because it's more vertical. So it's going to be a more dense line work. In fact, no, I'll leave it as is. I was going to go to a 2 or a 1. Maybe I'll go to a 1. I went to go pick up some materials the other day and couldn't find a Micron 1, so I picked up Staedtler 1.1. So I'm going to come in across and hatch this a little bit more dense. And then come down. I'm going to keep this line weight and be in this area. This mountain range is sort of textured and organic as it arrives to the vertical face. So just like I was doing before, sort of just let my pen graze across the page and just kind of go for it. Okay. I'm going to take the brown and I see areas along this face in the reference that have a little bit of a darker, some darker textures to it. But initially, as you first observe it, if you blur your eyes and you look at an image, you really only see the prominent composition, the more bold, important, I guess, forms. As we get closer and closer, we get to then see some other areas. So, whoa, that's 4. That was too big. So I'm gonna take the brown 0.005 and add a little bit of texture, and I can see in the pencil. Oh, it's too dark, huh? So you can see in the pencil reference that I worked with before that there are some areas that add texture. So I'm going to go in with the brown, light brown, and add that. Because right now the difference between the right side and the left side is different, far different. They are different, but I want to bring some texture to this side. You might be wondering, well, why do you stick to one angle of hatching? And I think I do that just initially, like to start out, to keep a consistent representation across the page, to help me to create a sense of balance, and to help me finish it, because when it's consistent, and it helps me to kind of scan through the page. I then later on, you'll see that I add some hatching in different angles, but that's like probably at the end of, like when I'm adding like the final touches to it. God, it's too dark. So I didn't really see how, like, the camera view while I was sketching. So there's probably moments where the lighting is really off because of the focus and how this phone camera is working. But I think that's how I'm going to leave it off for now. This was a good session on just how I like to approach hatching and organically letting my pen flow across the page, lifting it up, and things like that. So in the next step, I'm going to then apply watercolor and probably some very subtle watercolor initially, and then some darker details there, and then I'll come back at the very end and then do some ink again. So stay tuned for that, and hope you'll join me for that session. All right, thank you.